The newest wave of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers have just been revealed, and I have to say, they're looking pretty nutty. We have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we have Star Fox, but most crazy of all is the Phyrexianized Planeswalker.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered to talk about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers and my hype level is to the roof. Some of you have been leaving comments starting yesterday going, yo, did you see the new Tameo? This is insane, a Phyrexianized Planeswalker. And I have to admit, I share your enthusiasm. We will save that spoiler as the last item in this video because I have a fair bit to say about it. Now, let us dive in to some of the other nuttiness. I'm going to put up on the screen first for you the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. You ever watch the original movie? Anyways, Kappa Tech Wrecker. 1 green and 1. Get you a 1/3 Turtle Ninja. And yesterday we saw the Master Splinter Rat Ninja. So you can literally do the TMNT vibe. And that is silly fun. So this thing has ninjutsu for 1 green and 1. It enters the battlefield with a death touch counter on it. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a death touch counter from it. When you do, exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. I like this card for a couple of different reasons, aside just from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle aspect to it. The fact that you can ninjutsu this guy out and surprise smoke one of their artifacts or enchantments is really solid. The fact that you slap Death Touch on us, a 1/3 Death Touch is actually pretty solid. I've had a lot of luck with Finn in my green tower, and I'll be running this guy for sure. But I like this as well because it adds on to what Ikoria brought to the game. Ikoria is where we saw keyword abilities added on to counters, which I think is a great design concept. So now these older cards from Ikoria that will put Death Touch counters onto creatures will allow you to use multiple iterations of this creature's ability, as well as if you used it with things like Doubling Season. But either way, this feels like a really tight little package, and the surprise aspect of getting to destroy one of your opponent's permanents in terms of an artifact or enchantment feels really, really good to me. So this is a pretty solid card. In the artwork, you can literally see a turtle ninja. And I have to say, the stuff we're looking at today are things I never expected to see in Magic. Kamigawa is silly, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm having fun with it. It's just too goofy in some ways. Now, let's move on to the next card that we're gonna talk about, and that is Lizard Blades. This is a nutty piece of equipment, but also a creature at the same time, very similar to the jellyfish that we talked about previously. So, 1 red and 1 for a 1/1 artifact creature equipment lizard. It's like, how many different things can we fit on that type line? So, it's a 1/1 with double strike. Equipped creature has double strike, and it has reconfigure for 2, where basically for 2 mana, you can either turn this from a creature into a piece of equipment and slap it onto a dude, or you can have it return it back into being a creature, basically, right? It's a pretty funky concept where it's like, I'm alive! Oh, you pick me up? Okay, now I'm regular. It's like, are these infused with magic that makes them kind of like dancing blades? This feels like a really potent card, right? There's a white uncommon that's 1 white and 1 for a 1/1 with double strike, and this just slaps more onto it in terms of, by the way, I'm a 1/1 double striker, but you can make any of your guys double strike with this. And the idea of these like lightning fast lizard blades is really cool with like lightning flowing out of them. When you look at the artwork, it feels like, okay, I get where the double strike is coming from. Double lightning blast, jam them into a buddy, zzz, get some. Like this is a really solid piece of equipment. 100% going in my cube. Actually, it feels like red is getting a really good deal today in terms of the spoilers we're going to talk about. Like, if you take a look at Scrap Welder, this is a very funky card. 1 red and 2 for a 3/3 Goblin Artificer, and it has an ability, tap, sack an artifact with mana value X, Return target artifact with mana value less than X from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn. So this is a variation on a card concept we have seen before. We've already had a goblin that basically allows you to sack a artifact from in play and grab another artifact out of your graveyard. This one's interesting in that it doesn't have exactly an equal sort of setup in terms of the mana value of the artifact that you're giving up has to be higher than the mana value of the artifact you're getting back from your graveyard. So this is less powerful in one way, where you can't really get an equal trade kind of value, but it does give the artifact haste in case it's an artifact creature, which is a nice little bonus. And I really like the way that the ability kind of fits to the flavor concept of the card, because the idea is you have this goblin who goes out and collects up scrap and is able to weld it into something of meaning and use. In this case, obviously, some kind of gigantic mech that he's building or whatever. But the idea of you getting less mana value than you put in really does kind of tie into the concept of, okay, he's going around looking for scraps and slapping them together to create this. So you're not going to have, it's not like you're starting with a good product to begin with. So you take the artifact, you bust it down into scraps. He's able to use those scraps to rebuild a different artifact, essentially, but some of the materials are lost in the process. So overall, for me, I think that's pretty solid. This is a solid card. Adding haste onto it does take it from being strictly worse than other recurring recurring artifacts from your graveyard cards, right? So it is an interesting design. Now, talking about interesting, let's look at something that's literally only making it to this video because it's super goofy and fun. And that is the Geothermal Kami. This is not like a good magic card, but it is an amazing magic card at the same time. 1 green and 3 get you a 4/3 spirit. When Geothermal Kami enters the battlefield, you may return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. If you do, gain 3 life. So, I mean, look, 4 mana for a 4/3 that lets you bounce an enchantment for 3 life, this is draft garbage, right? Sure, bounce an enchantment, you get to use it again, whoop-de-doo! It's like, you're not going to play this in Standard unless you're insane. But the concept behind this card is absolutely hilarious. Look at the flavor text. The flavor text says, a mysterious Kami will sometimes appear to overworked monks and offer them a warm, relaxing bath. Like, how ridiculous is this? It's a spirit that just shows up and it's like, you've been working hard, bro. You look like you could use a bath. Climb inside me, bro. Splash around inside me, bro. Also, bro, don't ask why I don't fly, even though I very much look like I'm flying in the artwork. Please don't ask why I don't fly. Anyways, get inside me, bro. Splash around, bro. I don't know, I just look at this card and it's amazing. It's so goofy and funny. So our Star Fox card is Hot Shot Mechanic. 1 white gets you a 2/1 Fox Pilot, and it has the ability that when it crews vehicles, it does so as if its power were 2 greater. And its flavor text says, if your mech is factory standard, you might as well be walking. So you can tell this is that egotistical sort of, I've got a particular set of skills and it makes me feel like I'm better than you. And also, he genuinely has the skills to back it up. If you look at the card, just out of the gates without modifying him whatsoever, he's going to be able to crew as if he had a power of 4. And that is significant for 1 mana. Actually, Magic has changed a lot. Back in the day when I started, 1 white mana would get you a 2/1 Savant Alliance, and that was a rare card. Nowadays, you get so much more value for your mana, but this is clearly a Star Fox style card. It's a fun little include for people who enjoy this kind of a concept, and obviously, foxes were already native to Kamigawa, so it fits right in. The next thing I want to talk about is a really cool concept. This is Bronze Plate Boar. The idea behind this is it's essentially body armor that can turn into a boar, right? This is one of those equipment creatures that we've seen a number of different variations of, but I really, really like this one because it's the easiest to visualize. This guy is literally having his armor come off and turn into a charging boar. So 1 red and 2 gets you a 3/2 trampler. Equipped creature gets +3/+2 and has trample, and it reconfigures for 5. So admittedly, I like this card for the flavor concept of it, the design of it. I think this is really neat from that perspective. However, this is very clearly just going to be draft level garbage. This is nowhere near the lizard blades that we were looking at earlier. Now, on to a much better red card that makes me go, wow, Wizards, you're really pushing it here. And that is Sokensen, Crucible of Defiance. This is a very potent legendary land. So, it taps for a red mana, no downside, right? Comes into play untapped, ready to go, which is nuts. And it has channel, 1 red and 3. Discard the card. Basically, you get to create 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. And that ability costs 1 less mana to activate for each legendary creature you control. This thing, to me, is exactly what red decks have been dreaming of. It doesn't slow them down in any way. It's a land that comes into play untapped, and later on, when you don't need lands, can be discarded to turn into creatures, not just creatures, but creatures with haste. And since red tends to like to rush in and slam down hard, this seems like the perfect choice. I mean, it feels like an auto-include in any kind of mono-red rush deck. You'd be crazy not to use it. Any kind of lands that later on in the game you can go, I don't need these. Like, how many lands does your red deck really need to operate? 3, maybe 4 tops in most cases. So anything after that is a blank card, and your red deck is all about trying to win quick. So this is a very big deal. Now, my friends, let me talk about the most exciting spoiler card we're going to discuss today, and that is Tamiyo, the Completed Sage. And if you don't know what completed means, when completed is spelled that way, it's a sign of the Phyrexians. Basically, it's the ideal of perfection for Phyrexia. So Tamiyo has been completed by Phyrexia, and you can see that immediately in her casting cost, because your casting cost is 1 blue, 1 green, 1 hybrid Phyrexian blue-green mana, and 2. If you're not familiar with the Phyrexianized mana, it's interesting in that you can pay your life instead of the mana. So for that mana symbol, you can either pay a green, you can either pay a blue, or you can pay 2 life. However, when you move down into the ability section of Tamiyo, you will discover that there is a price to be paid in addition if you choose to go the life route. So this is a new ability called Completed, and it says that if you choose to pay 2 life instead of one of the colors of mana, then this Planeswalker comes out with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So if you cast Tamiyo for the full 5 mana, you're going to get 5 loyalty counters. But if you cast her for a blue, a green, 2, and 2 life, then she's going to come in with 3 loyalty counters instead. The first ability is +1, tap up to 1 target artifact or creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. -X, exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card. Or -7, create Tamiyo's Notebook, a legendary colorless artifact token with spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, and tap, draw a card. So this is a very interesting concept, right? When you take a look at the abilities that Tamiyo has, none of them really particularly feel like they've been influenced by Phyrexia. And this really does open up a wide array of questions. How did they get their hands on Tamiyo? What do you do to complete a Planeswalker? What level of control do they have over her? Like, it's one thing to turn regular denizens of a plane into a Phyrexian. It's something completely different to Phyrexianize and complete a Planeswalker. And this essentially opens the entire multiverse up to having all of the Planeswalkers one by one captured by Phyrexia and completed. And then we could also have storylines where they find ways to uncomplete these Planeswalkers. If you're not that familiar with the Phyrexians, which if you're not, that's amazing to me, but I've been around forever, right? So Phyrexians have been part of Magic since back in the earliest days. The first time we really encountered the Phyrexians was through Urza and Mishra and the Brothers War, which is the set that's coming out at the end of this year, and one of the best storylines in Magic the Gathering history. So if you want to check out the Brothers War storyline, I'm actually covering that lore over on my Fantasy Geographic lore channel, and we just put out the second installment. So there's almost already an hour's worth of this lore that's leading up to the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria and all this insanity, right? But now we're in the current era, where back then Urza's actually responsible for all of the Phyrexian stuff that kind of gets spread out into the multiverse. Through Karn, Urza's responsible for Phyrexia getting to Mirrodin, then converting Mirrodin into new Phyrexia, right? So think about that, guys. We haven't seen Koth in a long time. Tamiyo's probably not the first completed Planeswalker. Here's what I theorize. I theorize that the Phyrexians on Mirrodin got their hands on Koth, and maybe they completed him, or maybe they destroyed him trying to understand his spark. But then they were able to take that information and use it going forwards in a way to kind of drill down into, okay, what do we do when we get our hands on another Planeswalker? Now, we don't know the exact timeline for Tamiyo's completion as far as I understand either. So we're in an interesting situation where right now what's going on in the world of Kamigawa is the Emperor of Kamigawa has had her Planeswalker spark ignited by Tezzeret. But her spark is messed up, so as a result, she can't control it properly. Her followers end up developing the reality chip. The reality chip is intentionally designed to help the Emperor control her actual Planeswalker spark. But Tezzeret, again, ends up muddling about somehow, gets his hands on this gear, and then hands it off to the Phyrexians. So I'm not 100% sure if Tamiyo has been completed after they got their hands on this chip and figured out how to planeswalk around and snagged her, or if she somehow ended up over in their area. It's not 100% clear how Tamiyo ended up becoming a Phyrexian, but from this we can expect that either Koth has been destroyed or he has been completed. We can expect to see completion of other planeswalkers. In fact, Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh, may also be a completed Phyrexian. I'm not 100% sure if they just have kept his head regular and the rest of his body has been all changed up, but this really does open the gates to a wide variety of really interesting storylines. And I have to say, Wizards of the Coast bringing the Phyrexians back is a really smart move because they are an epic threat. They are relentless. They have this particular goal where they're going to do anything they can do to achieve it. Everything must be completed. And this leads to even crazier possibilities, guys. Think about the Eldrazi. What's the current situation with the Eldrazi? 2 of them have been destroyed. 1 of them remains, Emrakul. Where is Emrakul? Emrakul is in the moon. Who put Emrakul in the moon? Tamiyo. So Tamiyo has a link to the Eldrazi. And now the Phyrexians have Tamiyo under their thumb, which means they have access to somebody who knows about the Eldrazi. So one day, I could easily see the Phyrexians' goal becoming, we must subdue the Eldrazi. We must complete these otherworldly beings that live outside of the blind eternities in the name of the great cause, right? I mean, the current era of Phyrexians don't really recognize the old father of machines the same way, but they do long for a new father of machines. They literally tried to install Karn as the new Yawgmoth, essentially, right? So for me, this is insane. When I saw it, my jaw dropped. I was like, what is going on? And the first version I saw had Phyrexian text, and I literally just sat there and went, oh, the Phyrexian Planeswalkers. Oh, it's happening. We're going to have the most epic storylines. Dude, this year seems like it's going to be wild for Magic stories. We're going to have whatever happens in Kamigawa followed up by New Capenna, but then we're going to go to Dominaria United, which is probably Teferi uniting Dominaria, maybe bringing his homeland back. They all face off against the Phyrexians, and then after the Phyrexians, then we get to have a set based on my favorite story in all of Magic, the Brothers War. Like, this is turning out to be so awesome, and I could go on and on and on. So I probably at this point should say, thanks for coming by, my friends. Today we're going to say that people whose names start with the letter A and let's say B. A and B, you may comment today. No one else may comment. No one may like or subscribe to this channel. Why would you want to do something like that? Big thank you to all of my patrons. Links on the screen to more Kamigawa spoilers and the Brothers War lore. And I will see you, my friends, tomorrow for more goodness.